Hi, everyone. Dr. Tim for another Dr. Tim's Aquatics podcast. And back with us, Thomas Berchery from ASF and Dale Lewis from Reptile Systems. And we are going to talk about a number of products. Let's get this, let's see, full screen here. All right, Thomas is going to start us off talking about the ASF test kits. Welcome, Thomas.
Hello, Tim. How is everything?
Everything is wonderful.
Perfect. Well, I think today we need to talk about the importance of regular water control of an aquarium, whether it's with our test kits or another. I think we need to emphasize that
there are no others, Thomas.
Okay, there are other ways of testing water, that's for sure. But we have to understand that one of the main killing things in an aquarium is bad water quality. So we need to record the water quality and we need to test the water quality. And so I think, that the very first topic is why water testing is important. Water quality is going to affect fish health, plant growth, coral health. And poor water quality could really make problem. For example, it can stress fish before killing them, potentially. It can inhibit coral growth. For example, if your alkalinity or magnesium doesn't have the right levels, so it will limit their growth. Or you could have algae blooms, for example, if you have excess of nitrates or phosphate because you're not using the proper bacteria.
Right. And one thing you didn't mention, and it happens in all aquariums, is the nitrification process, the conversion of ammonia to nitrate is going to lower your pH. And you lower the pH, that is bad for the nitrifying bacteria, and it's bad for many fish. So just the basic process, you can't stop this. Having an aquarium means your pH over time is going to drop, which can lead to lots of potential problems.
Yeah. And also I know, for example, many aquarists that still says, I don't need to test my water. I can look at my fish, or I can look at the way the corals are or the plants, and I can say that my water parameters are good. I think Dale was in the shop before, and when some people were coming with water and they said, I have problems. How are your water parameters? Oh, they're perfect. Dale, am I wrong? Yeah.
It's always perfect. Everything's always perfect.
Well, it's nice to know that that's universal, because every time when we get a customer, emailing us or at a show talking to us, and the first thing I say is, what's your water parameters? They're perfect. every tank is perfect. Why are there so many problems?
Correct. But because you don't test, you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we should use their water if they've got perfect water. I've never seen an aquarium perfect.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, if you're listening to this, and I've said this many times, is when you come to us, and we really do want to help you, but we need to know the numbers. That's what this whole thing about test kits is. We need to know what the pH is. Do you have ammonia nitrite? As Thomas says, especially salt water. What are your calcium, magnesium, alkalinity? Because, let us help you by giving us the numbers rather than just saying, they're perfect.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then I think the more you get into the hobby, the more you can be technical and use more advanced test kits, for example. But when you are a real starter, you can use simple test kits. And I think that's the second part that I would like to talk about, is what are the different water testing methods? Because you can have many different types of methods. You can have, the first one and the easiest one for everyone are test strips. So test strips is a small strip which is impregnated with chemicals that you dip into the water, and then it will change color and give you some results. I'm not going to say it's accurate, but it can give you a very quick idea. And I think when you're a beginner, usually people like to buy this because it's easy to read, easy to use.
Right.
Even though there is a big cons, it's not accurate, that's for sure. And also we get the issue about when you have the tubes where you have all the strips in, usually you have water that gets in, humidity, and then it destroys the chemicals, but of course you don't know it. And you will see that about test kits, oxidation of the chemicals is going to be one of the key parameters and one of the main issue we can face with test kits. So that's the first one, test strip. Then it exists colorimetric test kits. So colorimetric test kits is when you use a color changing reagent, which is going to indicate the concentration of a specific parameter. For example, you mentioned pH or you mentioned ammonia. So in that case, you put the chemicals inside water and the color is going to change. Then you have some charts. So I put some charts in the presentation. If you can move the presentation. Yeah. So for example, for nitrates, you have a color change, and then according to what you read, you know you have or you haven't got nitrate. We put a scale on the farm on this, but obviously it's not as accurate as some other testing methods could be. I think it's very good to indicate if you have or you don't have, because for example, to have a difference between 10 milligram and 25 milligrams, it's going to be almost impossible to say.
But in many cases, though, you shouldn't worry about, is it 10 or 11? It's an indicator. Do you have the 10, the light pink, or are you into the fuchsia at 100 or over 100?
Correct.
With these test kits, with the ASF, you're looking down on it. So you put the water in, you put the 5 ml line, you add the drops, shake it a little bit, and then put the vial straight down on the card, laying on a table, and then look down through, not sideways through. You look
from the top. Correct.
From the top.
Yeah,
and
the black circle that's on there is where you position the test tube bottle, and as you said, look down through the water rather than looking across. Yeah.
Now, one thing people don't realize with test kits, not so much nitrate, but there's a range. Test kits can't measure everything, and this is especially true with ammonia. If you have super high ammonia, the test kit may give you what's called a false negative. It doesn't change the color because there's so much ammonia that the drops can't react with it, and so it gives you a blank, but you really have a lot of
that's why you need to make dilution in that case. Then you need to know how to do a dilution, which is not always easy to do. And also don't forget, there is one key thing that is important to remember. You know that almost 10% of the men population is colorblind. So how do you read the color when you're colorblind? You can't. So that's a big problem. I mean, for 10% of the population or 8% of the population.
I'm sure the women would say it's a lot higher than 10% as well, to be fair. My wife is definitely including me in the colorblind chart.
So the good thing with a colorimetric test, it's you can use on the spot. It's quite inexpensive if you compare to ICP tests that we are going to talk later on. And you have a quick result, so you know straight away what's in your tank. Another type of colorimetric test, we call this a titrimetric test, is when you add. So it's the next one, Tim, if you don't mind. So a titric test is you add a reagent drop by drop in the water, and the color is going to change when you have the endpoint, and so that's going to give you the results. In that case, for example, the calcium level. So if you use in your syringe 0.5 of the syringe, it will give you a calcium level of 250 milligram per liter. So titric test. Sorry, Tim.
No, go ahead, Thomas.
No, I said titric tests are precise. And it change using the color is when the pH is changing in the solution, and that's give the results. And titric tests are used for calcium, magnesium, alkalinity especially. can be
Yeah,
used for other test kits.
Yeah. So with these tests, there's a one color. You draw the titrant into a syringe that's marked at 1 mil, and then you slowly add one drop at a time, and you'll see very clearly that the solution changes color. You'll stir it, it'll go back to its original color. You add one more drop, and then it changes color permanently. And then you read the syringe, say it's now at 0.8. So you went from 1 mil down to 0.8. That tells you that you have 100 milligrams per liter of calcium.
Yeah.
And so that is more precise than the colorimetric test, the titration test.
But titration has also the thing is you have to understand when the color is changing, because if you wait a little bit, the color might change again. So my advice, when you use a titration, add one more drop just to be sure that the color is staying usually stays yellow, because it turns from yellow to blue, from blue to yellow, sorry. Then another way of using colors is when you use photometric test kits. So that means you use a color test, but you use a meter to read the result of the test. So this can be very accurate if, and it's a big if everything is always made in the same way. That means your vials where you make the test kits need to be always perfectly clean. That means if we ask you to put 5 milliliters of water, you have to put 5 milliliters, not 5.1, not 4.8. And it's the same. You need to put a very specific amount of reagent so that you are sure about the reading you're going to have from the reader. We developed a few years ago a colorimeter, and we had to stop it because it was almost impossible for us to give to the people always the same amount of water from their aquarium to test, and to keep the same amount of reagent to make the test kit. So it's a very nice product because you have a very easy reading. It reads the intensity or the color changing, but you need to be very careful with all the parameters of the water and the chemicals. And also, if the chemicals are being oxidated, which happens quite fast in some cases, also it faults your reading. So it might be the case that you don't have a perfectly accurate readings because of all of this.
Right. So, and that's why you should keep a log. It seems crazy, but you should write down what your readings have been over time. And that way, when you do the test, if all of a sudden the number is really high or really low, and you've been here and then it's way up, well, hold it. Maybe take another sample and redo the test, because the colorimetric test using a photometer or a spectrophotometer, they're going to give you a number. There's a readout there, an LED. It's going to give you a number. You have to decide whether that number makes any sense. And sometimes,
it doesn't.
it doesn't. And it could be the vials were dirty. They weren't cleaned enough. Well, how can that be? Well, if you're doing out here in California where there's lots of calcium and magnesium and you didn't clean them, it leaves a calcium and residue, that white, dirty color.
And you should be able to calibrate as well your photometer, which is very important. Is the calibration of this.
Nobody calibrates, and also standards. How do you really know? In a lab, you set everything up, and the first thing you do is you run standards so that this standard is certified. It's exactly, say, 100 milligrams per liter of calcium, and the equipment's working. And we would say do 20 tests, and we would check the standard. The machinery would go back, grab out of the standard, just so you would see, because things vary over time and things happen. So
I have a funny story about this. I remember one time we tried to buy a machine, an automatic photometer for our lab, because we are using mostly colorimetric tests because they are very accurate, very fast, but we use all the lab machinery to be accurate. And so we wanted to make this more automated. And so we buy a machine, and we have the sales guy coming, and And then we said, okay, we would like to test seawater, and we make some tests. And I said, yeah, but what are the standards to use? Oh, you should buy aquarium system sea salt. You put 57 grams for 1.5 liters, and we know you're going to have 400 milligrams of calcium for your seawater, for example. And we said, yeah, but we are aquarium systems, and it's to test our production to be sure it match everything we claim every single time. And then the guy says, we don't have proper standard for that, so that's going to be a problem. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. So we gave them back the machine, and that was the end of it.
The testing is important, but you don't want to get lost in the numbers. And
no, I agree.
For trends, a lot of times people freak out when they're starting up, and oh, my ammonia's 1, but you know everything's going to die. That's not going to happen. Ammonia can be toxic, but you have to be at super high levels for it to be toxic, is where it's going to kill everything in a few days or a few hours. The same with nitrite. Nitrite has to be quite high, especially in salt water, to actually kill your fish. It's now, don't get me wrong, the fish are stressed, they don't like it, but you don't have to panic. And anytime,
and it grows gradually. So also they adapt. I mean, they know how to adapt.
Yeah.
But better not to have them, that's for sure. So after the photometric test kits that I explained, there is also electronic testers. So electronic testers is a good solution to monitor constantly a solution, for example, for pH or salinity or the temperature. But what is not convenient with this is also you need to calibrate all the time. You need to have solutions to calibrate, because it offsets very quick. And then if you damage the cathode, I'm not sure in English how you said the probe.
The probe, yeah.
The probe. Yeah. Then you get some issues. So it could be high maintenance as well. So you have to consider this. And then the last step, the most advanced test for people are ICP, whether they are ICP OES or with mass spectrometry in addition. These are supposed to be more precise, but it's not. It's not, because there is some limit of detections. And what I don't like with this test is you get the parameters 1 week after you take the water sample. So in 1 week, many things can go wrong, and many things can change in 1 week. So I'm always been in favor of having test kits that you can do yourself at home quickly with a reliable solution. That's where our range of sea tests came on, and they are reliable. They are not crazy expensive, and you've got really good readings for the money. That's for sure.
Yeah, and there's really. It depends on what you're testing. There's no reason to send out for an ICP test to test calcium and magnesium. ICP is really developed to test trace metals, but the issue is that the matrix, meaning salt water, ICP can do fresh water at one level of precision, but salt water is going to be higher because you've got so much salt, the sodium and
chloride
and all that interferes with the matrix. And so they'll give you numbers, but that doesn't mean they're always right. And you have to figure out, like Thomas said, if you need a quick test right now of the ammonia, nitrite, pH, those basic tests, you can use these ASF kits. They're great, even with the calcium and the magnesium.
Yeah.
If you're looking to test copper or zinc or some of these trace metals, you can consider ICP. But for your day-to-day testing, the ASF line of test kits is going to be perfect for you.
Yeah. So, and another point when we do water testing, which is for me very important, is how do you take your water sample? And that's a big thing as well, because first you need your testing vials where you're going to put, needs to be clean. It seems obvious, but it's not. It really needs to be clean, properly clean. And then when you take the samples of your water in the aquariums, when are you going to take it? Are you going to take at the surface where you could have the residue of grease, or you can have some oil, you know, the oily stuff on the top of the water. Are you going to take it in the middle of the tank? So you need to be consistent on when you take your water samples. And what I do usually, I always clean the vials, you know, to make the test. I always clean it with acid-based solutions, whether it's vinegar, white vinegar. Then I rinse with RO water, and then I rinse with the water of the aquarium that I'm going to test. And then only I put the water that I'm going to test, which I usually take about 20 centimeters below the water level of the tank. Yep. And once you've made your protocol, respect this protocol. Do it always the same way. Because if you want, you need to have repeatability to have by your log, like you say, to know if it's correct or not. So this is very, very important. The other thing is, once you know where to take your water sample, is how frequently should you test the water? That's another point. So when you are making a new setup, I mean, all the key parameters like ammonia, nitrate, and pH, you need to test. I'm not going to say every day, but almost every day. Once your tank is cycled, which you know is the ammonia level. I mean, when you look the fishless cycle recipe card from Dr. Tim, you have this indication. Then when it's done, you can start to space a little bit your water testing. So that means once your tank is established, and if you don't add corals or fish or plants in your tank, I mean, if you do bi-weekly, that should be all right, you know, to be sure that everything goes smoothly in your tank. Of course, if you see with your eyes that the problem is there, make the water test. And for reef tank, especially if you use the baling method, then yes, you need to test much more often, especially on alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, because you need to adapt your dosing pump.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. But I think there is another point that is important, Tim, is what to do with the results and which action you take from the result of your test kits. Because if you have ammonia or if you have nitrate or phosphate, we know we can use Dr. Tim's bacteria. They are going to help. But customers should be able to ask questions, and that's, well, Tim, you answer quite a lot of questions in your Q&A with the water parameters. So there are information around, or ask your shops. You know, if you have ammonia, you can do a water change. So you need to be careful to what are you going to do with the results of your test kits.
But like I said, don't panic.
Yeah, don't panic and ask some question first.
Well, that's another topic we'll get to. Okay, how to apply the results.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah, correct.
So now we're going to transition to Dale, and he's going to talk about the new dawn lighting. And if you have an aquarium, really pay attention to this, as more and more people want to combine plants, you know, not just vivariums or, you know, you have fish at the bottom, but plants, but people want to have plants, very popular to grow some spices and edible plants out of small aquariums. And you have to have the right lighting to do that. And so the new Dawn range can help. It's basically great plant lights, as Dale's going to explain.
Yeah, I mean, so when we talk in reptiles, there's four things they need, really. You've got UV light. When I say light, I mean visible light, heat, and nutrition. So last time we sort of mentioned about the UV side of things. So this one is about light, or visible light. Now, most people think that I've got a T5 light over my reptiles, and that's got the UV and the light. The problem is that T5 light that you're using just isn't bright enough to recreate the big ball of yellowness in the sky over your animals. It really does need supplementation of an extra light. And LEDs now they're just fantastic to be able to do that. But you do need to be able to kind of buy the right ones. So when your household LEDs, you can buy warm light, cool light, that sort of thing. You want to stay away from all of that household LED and stick with this range, New Dawn, and it's a true 6,500 Kelvin spectrum of light for plant growth. It's designed to grow plants. Now, 6,500 Kelvin means it's a white light. It's going to give you a nice, bright, white light, high energy, high efficiency, but with low running costs. So the first one, just to talk about in our range, the small compact ones. These are designed E26 screw fitting. They are designed to be used horizontally. So they're going to sit on top of your terrarium, vivarium, and they're used horizontally. What that does then is all the light, when you think about a tube emits light, a T5 tube, T8 tube, whichever, 360 degrees all the way around. So unless you put a reflector over the top of that, you're wasting a lot of light. Whereas LEDs will punch only in the way that you're pointing them. So if you put these over the top, your terrarium, plant life, whether you've got them in the ceiling or mounted to the wall and angled down over the top of the plants, all of that light is directly going over the plants. Now, when we say full spectrum, what we're talking about is the 400 nanometer to 700 nanometer spectrum that humans can see that plants need. So we can't see into the UV range, whereas reptiles can, and we can't see into the infrared range, and obviously reptiles can. So when you see the words full spectrum, it doesn't mean UV, visible, and infrared. It just means that full spectrum of human light, which is 400 nanometers, which is very blue, going through the green, yellow, orange, red at the sort of 700. So the full spectrum is what plants need. Now, technically, plants don't really need white light. If you look at the hydroponic industry, they'll grow plants for human consumption, for growing, for aquaponics, and they'll grow it under purple light. Now, what this is red LEDs and blue LEDs together. And plants will grow very, very well under that. The white light is really brought in for the home enclosure and the human aspect of it. So look at your terrarium with a reptile in or without, and just see this purple glow. It's not really the most aesthetic thing in the world for in your home. But if you wanted to grow plants, potentially you only need that kind of, either end of the spectrum. So the full spectrum is a white light designed to grow plants. Now, this compact comes in two different sizes. You've got the 4.5-inch long 9 watt and the 6-inch long 13 watt. What's nice about these is because they fit in horizontally, once you screw it all the way in, I guarantee you that LEDs will be pointing in the wrong direction. So once you've screwed it all the way in, so it's nice and tight in your ceramic fitting, it has a 360-degree rotation built in. So once it's screwed in and made the connection, you can then angle the LED to where you want to be without unscrewing. So you can point it directly down. It's just, it's always been the case. Whenever you screw something in, that has to be pointing in one direction. And sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
So the rotation, the 320-degree rotation part, as it says on the screen there, that's to enable you to angle the light forwards or backwards to get it in the right angle you want, so pointing down over your terrarium or paludarium. On this particular product, this has a 120-degree beam angle where the light is going to come out front and back or left and right. They are small, so this is the first ones in the small. So the 9 watt is ideal to use in small terrariums, sort of 12, 18-inch. And the 13 watt is good for the kind of 18-inch to 24-inch wide terrariums. And if then you go to the next slide, that's when we move on to the stage. So this is the exact same LED. We don't change the LED, we just put it in a different format. So these are 10 and 25 watt versions, 10 being on the left, 25 watt being on the right. They look very similar, but in actual size, the 25 watt is probably 3 times the size. And these ones are vertical. So these ones will go into dome fixtures, or they'll kind of screw up into the ceiling of your wooden viv, and these beam down. So yeah, 10 watt, 25 watt, again, 6,500 Kelvin. These have a higher CRI, and CRI is the color rendering index that humans can see. So this is really how bright they are. Anything above 80 is considered good. But yeah, these two are even better. These are above 90 on the CRI. They work with our black clamp lamps. So you can use these on the black domes. Both of these fit into the small. So because they are very low wattage, because they're LED, you can use the 10 watt and the 25 watt in the small dome.
So these would be good not only for vivariums, but if someone's doing home hydroponics or just wants to light up an area where they're growing terrestrial plants, just to have nice plants.
100%. Yeah, you've got a nice kind of pot plant or an indoor plant inside. You can
mount
these.
We have customers using it for bonsai.
Yes, we supplied a load for a customer that grows bonsai in the store, and he kitted the entire ceiling with New Dawn spots. So the entire shop is white, crystal white, and it's all 6,500 Kelvin. So it doesn't matter in his shop where he puts the bonsai trees or where he kind of wants to sort of organize the furniture inside the store. All the light is going to be used. But no, you're right. The 10 watt, if you've got a nice pot plant in the corner, they're E26 screw fittings. They're a standard fitting. So potentially you could replace the light inside a cabinet or inside your ceiling lights, or you can just kind of hang a nice sort of dome pendant from the ceiling over that area and grow terrestrial plants. It really doesn't matter whether the plant is inside a paludarium, which is fish and reptiles, fish and plants, or whether it's a terrarium, just plants, or just a house plant. This is all about providing super white light for plant growth at low energy. I mean, the interesting thing about the 25 watt is the 25 watt is a very tight beam. As you can see there, it's only 25 degrees wide. That is, yeah, I mean, and it really will grow plants at 6 to 8 feet away from the lamp. So going on what you just said about having a pot plant or an indoor plant, if your ceiling is 6 feet away, 8 feet away, you got a nice big voltage, stick one of those in the ceiling and it will still grow the plants at that far away, but it won't spread light into the room. If you've got a wide angled product, what you don't want to do is put it high in the ceiling, because it will flood the whole area of white light rather than concentrating it on where you want it to grow. So the next one is exactly that. The next product on the slides is the 35 watt. Now the 35 watt is the 80-degree beam angle, and this is exactly that. This is for lower to the terrarium or lower to your plant, because it's a wide angled lamp. So whereas the 10 and the 25 watt are sort of spotlights, they're narrow beam, this is the wide beam. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen there where you've got the 4 round circles. And what they do with the lensing is they throw the light out left to right, front to back, whereas the 25 on the previous page is really kind of just pushing it straight down. So this one looks a little bit different in the body. That's because the white part on the body is made of plastic, and there's actually a fan cool inside there. So as soon as the LEDs, the idea of LEDs is to get the heat away from the LED as quickly as possible. That really keeps the length of the LEDs. If the LED starts to get hot, it will shorten the length of it. So the previous slide showed metal. That's for me, that's aluminium, but for you guys, aluminum. That gets the heat away from the LED. But we can't, the products would be even bigger. So what we use on the 35 watt is we use a fan, just like a computer fan. Once it starts to get warm, the fan kicks in and cools it down.
And it's completely noisy. Don't worry, you can't hear it at all.
Oh no, you can't. It's completely silent. Yeah, I suppose a computer fan's actually quite noisy. But yeah, I mean, it's very quiet. Even if it's in a dome, there's no resoluting sort of noise that will kind of vibrate around it and come out. You wouldn't even know it's working. It's just there to keep the product cool, to take that heat away from the LED. And these LEDs will last. Doesn't matter whether it's the compact, the 10-watt spot, the 25-watt, the 35. These LEDs will last you 5 years plus. No problem at all. We've had them running. I think we brought the product out in 2018. And we've still got the original ones going now. We check the lux output, which is the total volume of light, the lumens, and yeah, they in 5 years maybe lost 10% of the output, and they're still growing plants for fun. Either fast-growing plants, slow-growing plants. If you go onto our social media and some of our YouTube, you'll actually see an ongoing cactus growing experiment we showed between the 3 different sizes. And this was just a standard. I can't even remember the species of the name of the cactus. It's been growing that long. But you can see the cactus actually changing shape and size depending on the light output. We put some 4,000 Kelvin lights out of there. This 6,500 Kelvin. So 4,000 Kelvin is yellow, very kind of yellowy light. 6,500 is very white, and then you get to 10,000 where it starts to turn blue. And the plants just don't respond to it. They respond to 6,000, 6,500 Kelvin. The cactus flowered within 6 months, and it flowers 2 or 3 times a year. The other plant we grew was aloe vera. That's an interesting plant to watch growing on a time frame because it sends out runners and the plant grows again. But unfortunately, yeah, my point's proven because on the 4,000 Kelvin, the cactus didn't make it past 18 months. Whereas on 6,500 Kelvin New Dawn, they're still going strong after, what year are we? So 5 years? 5 years that experiment's been going.
Tell the truth, you broke one. You broke one with a bucket. Tell the truth.
See, I wasn't going to bring that up, but yes, I did break one with the bucket. Yes, that's my fault. Yes.
So, Dale, let me ask you this. I'm going to throw you a curve. Have you ever put one of these over an aquarium?
Yes.
with just regular aquatic plants, and have this, hanging over an aquarium, a tropical, freshwater aquarium?
So there's pros and cons here. So from a legal point of view, it can be quite dangerous, and the reason behind it is the screw fitting part isn't waterproof. It's not IP protected in any way, shape, or form. So legally, it can never be actually sold as an aquatic product because it's not waterproof. It doesn't have an IP rate. That's our legislation in Europe. I don't know about the US. It all
There's 50 states. There's going to be 50 regulations.
And it's because the moisture that comes up from
forget all. We don't worry about that type of stuff.
But that's the negative. The positive side of it, it'll grow your aquatic plants for fun. I mean, absolute fun.
Yeah.
The downside is if you have some phosphates and you have a bit of nitrate in there, it will also grow your algae for fun as well, or algae, whichever you want to say it. That's the downside. That 6,500 Kelvin, that amount of light, especially if you use the 25-watt spot where it's concentrated and beamed down, you will see a greener area of your aquarium compared to the rest. It will grow, but that all comes down to aquarium management or aquarium husbandry.
We have some customers using these lamps, but they are fixed on the ceiling for the plants when they sell in the shops. To show, to give the nice colors for the display where people can buy the plants. They do use them, but they are fixed on the ceiling. So they use a 25 watts. So it's, as Dale says, it's a really narrow beam, so it goes well in the water.
But Dale, when it comes to phosphate and nitrate, I mean, any light, if you're trying to grow plants, no matter what light you use, if you have phosphate and nitrate, you're going to, you have the potential of growing algae because they're plants too. So
true. Okay. But if you was to think about the aquatic LED bar that's on the market, only about 10, maybe 20% of the LEDs inside that bar, because they've got 50, 60, 80 LEDs, or so some are pink, some are green, some are red, some are blue, some are white. So only 20% of them would actually be the white ones that would light the aquarium nice and bright for us. Again, not really for the fish, but would help the plants grow. This only has the white. This only has the stuff that's going to. So adding this on, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day would be the best way to do it. But if you use this as your sole source, trust me, from a hydroponic point of view that we've done in France,
we tried,
which I think you've seen, we angled the lights from the front, and it was down onto the water rather than up onto the back where the water trickles through all the plant roots, and the water went green. As soon as we took the light off the water and angled it more at the plants at the back, the plants do really well. They take the nitrate and the phosphate out of the water clears up within a day, 2 days. It's phenomenal how plants on a it's amazing.
I got another use. If you're trying to grow green algae to feed copepods, well, no, you see it in Reefapalooza. People are trying to grow different species of green algae and then feed that or to their corals or to their copepods, and they use poor lighting, and you have to have you're adding nutrients because you're trying to grow a large population of algae. These are perfect.
We have breeders of spirulina using New Dawn. This we have in France now.
Perfect. Lots of uses for this.
Yeah, I mean, on that respect, yes, that would work. But what you said there is correct. You would need to kind of make sure you put lots of food in there to kind of feed. It's a chain event, isn't it? You can't just provide light. You need food as well.
Growing algae is a lot of work because you're growing algae and they're growing like bacteria exponentially, and they need nutrients. And if you don't have the nutrients, the whole system crashes. So, it's a lot of work to grow and maintain an algae culture.
We have several customers that use the New Dawn LEDs over their sump filtration system when they have Cheeto or algae or bubble algae, all the different types of again using. So rather than in the main display aquarium, they'll use the plant growing lights in their filtration system to absorb that extra little bit of that nitrate and phosphate, so that the plants in the filtration system absorb it, which is exactly the same as the aquaponic system, exactly the same as the hydroponic. Water with plants, nitrate, phosphate, the right lighting. It's a marriage made in heaven. So, but going on your theory of water, the next slide is where we took the New Dawn range one stage further.
Right, and this is what you were talking about. Sorry to interrupt. About LEDs have a wavelength. They're not all the wavelengths. You have an LED, correct me if I'm wrong, has a wavelength.
Yes. So we know that visible light is between 400 nanometers and 700 nanometers. Now, when you make a fluorescent tube, what you do is you blend all those phosphors together. So you can throw some 410 phosphor in there, 450, 300. So, and you make that and you blend it all together and you make a white light or a red light or a blue light. With LED, it's not quite the same. With LED, you have to manufacture 420 nanometer LED. Then you have to manufacture the 440 nanometer LED to hit that spectrum. And then if you go red, it would be 640 and 680. You have to kind of choose the spectrum that you want, or the nanometer range you want. And to make it full spectrum, you need a lot of different LEDs mixed together to create that. And that's where the Pro 10 kind of comes in and really concentrates a bit more on that red and blue spectrum that we mentioned right at the start that the hydroponic guys use. They don't have the white light. They just use the red and the blue. But it's not that nice. So Pro 10 is an LED bar that's 100% waterproof. that uses New Dawn LEDs. You can see the picture there. All the white dots are the white LEDs from the New Dawn range, 6,500 Kelvin.
Right.
But we added blue and red LEDs to it as well to really, really enhance what the plants want, but without making it purple. So we've added the red LEDs and we've added the blue LEDs, but because the white still overpowers, the human eye doesn't see the red and the white. We see this kind of white, this white color. But the plants really respond because it's got the red, what they want, and the blue of what they want, which is where they produce chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. So with the Pro 10, we can actually, this is a sealed unit. You don't put this in, this runs off its own power supply with its own sort of, its own driver. Then it goes into a small switch box. And the switches they've got two switches. One switch is just for your white LEDs. So if you divide that Pro 10 into 3 lines, you've got the whites on the left, whites on the right, and the colors, let's call it, in the middle. So switch 1 does the whites, and then switch 2 does your red and blues in the middle row. So if you just want to use the white light, fine, switch 1. And you can see on the chart there where we've got channel 1 covers the full spectrum. If you want to use channel 2, you can see that the red really starts to kind of ramp up. And then if you add channel 1 and 2 together, that's when you get that full spectrum with the enhanced. And what the red and the blue does is enhance the flowering and the budding effect of plants. So that means they're going to grow and reproduce by adding those 2 spectrums. These are completely waterproof. Everything you need is in the box.
Legally, though, these are not submersible. Don't put them in the water.
So, small story. Do you remember when you came to the UK in 2018? There may or may not have been some alcohol involved, and you said, how waterproof are they? And we just threw it in a fish tank whilst it was on.
Do not try this at home.
Do not try this.
No, do not.
It's still running in water today, and that was 2018. So they are completely waterproof. IP67 means they can be dropped in water and picked up within 20 minutes. No problem at all. But to give you an idea of how waterproof they are, in your terrarium, vivarium, if you've got sprayers, misters, you do not need to worry when using Pro 10. They are completely waterproof from start to finish. So, you know, you got chameleons in there, you got some crested geckos, you're spraying water in there for your plants. Because it's really humid, it's drying out quickly, so you need to put more and more and more water in. These things are absolutely perfect. You can put these under the mesh, you can fix them to the top of a wooden enclosure, you can rest them on top of the mesh, completely versatile. And these really will grow plants for fun, and a full range of sizes as well. As they grow in length, their wattage increases as well. But yeah, super easy product, robust, and yeah, like all the LEDs from Reptile Systems, a 2-year warranty, no problem at all.
And also, Dale, I'd like to say that with the New Dawn range, we could have made them even brighter, but then we could have blinded the reptile if it was brighter. And many breeders are using right now New Dawn because it increased the activity of the reptile. And we, for the little story, we just welcomed 2 new chameleons in our reptile room, and straight away they went under the New Dawn spot. Straight away.
Yeah, we have a prototype in France. It's still there, and the product name was going to be Super New Dawn, or New Dawn Super Pro, something like that. We never did it because when we tested the product in our test bay, I know we spoke about this before, and it worked. It was great. The looks, the lumens, the graphs, they were off the charts. It was super bright. We then put it over our animals to kind of see what it did to plant growth and see what it did to the animals. The animals hid away. They literally didn't do what Thomas just said now, which is what the new animals we've got went straight to the New Dawn, and you know, they're sitting there, they're enjoying it. It was too bright. Even things like chameleons that would sit out there all the time and bask under the UV, take all this extra light. Yeah, when we tried the prototype, the Super New Dawn, what we never made, it was too bright, and they they hid away. That's kind of defeating the object of what we're trying to achieve.
That's
So
true.
so animal welfare is still a big thing for us, still a big thing. So yeah, if you go to the next slide, you'll see all the different sizes, the switches, the amount of white LEDs, the red LEDs, the blue LEDs, and the Pro 10, depending which kind of length you're looking at. And where it's got the length, just as if anyone's looking to purchase this, the smaller length, so where it says 10 to 18 inches, the smaller length is the size of the body, but it's got these adjustable legs that can come out either side. So the 18-inch marking on that 7-watt unit is when the legs are out at their maximum. So the next one down, 18 inch, is the size of the actual body. And if you need to extend the legs out to 24 inches, this one gives you the ability to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Dale. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. Oh, actually, there is one more slide. Sorry, I'm just trying to go into this very, very quickly. So
He's hijacked this.
Yeah, so this one's kind of taking new technology to the extremes of where we are now. We know this is UV and LED added together. It's still super, super new. Years ago, they said it could never be done, but a few of us, and I'm talking a few of us in terms of motor manufacturers, we've managed to create one. T5 lighting is great, but we know it's very old technology, and at one stage, it will get stopped. It's not stopped yet. Nobody panic. Please don't panic. But in 5 years, 10 years, there's a very, very good chance with the poor energy efficiency of T5 lighting, it will be stopped. So we really need to work on LED for UV. It's been around for a long, long time, but now it's got a lot better in terms of the amount of UV that can be thrown out from the chip. So that picture on the left-hand side is our UVI flood. So it uses New Dawn LEDs to provide the white light for plants and increase light in your enclosure. And the sensor LEDs, where they kind of look a bit brown on that picture, they are actually our UV LEDs, and they're made up with UVA chips and UVB chips. So just like what we do in the T5 tube, where we add different powders and different minerals to create the UVA and UVB, when we're making chips for LEDs, we have to make one at 335 nanometers. We have to make one at 295 nanometers, one at 375 nanometers. So inside that middle bit is 26 UVI LEDs from 295 nanometers to 320 for the UVB, and then 320 to 400 to cover the UVA. It's still very new technology, but this will last you 5 years in terms of delivering light and UVI into your enclosure. T5 lights have to be changed every year. Every 1 year, you have to change the lamp. Otherwise, the UV gets burnt off and it's too low. So these are expensive. They are more expensive than buying a T5 light, but this product is 13 watt. The smallest T5 lamp, for a 2 foot is 24 watt. So it's half the running costs. In Europe right now, with the way electricity is, that's a big point straight away. But they're not 5 times the price. So they are more expensive when you look at them, but they're not 5 times the price and the running costs of a T5 lamp. So it's definitely something to start thinking about. This is 13 watt, split almost equally between UVI lighting and visible lighting. So it combines the two products together. And this is the first of several sizes we're looking at doing over the next kind of few years. So this is 13 watt. This is a 6-inch light. This is great for 12, 18, 24-inch kind of wide enclosures, 18, 24-inch deep, crested geckos, chameleons, at closer proximity, bearded dragons, and several kind of zone 3 species as well. But yeah, there's just something to they are available now. They're available in the US. I know you sold quite a lot, and people that are looking in the future. If they're looking at the price right now, this I'll be honest, it's not for you. It's expensive in terms of changing one lamp. But if you're looking at spreading the cost over 5 years and doing that small calculation and thinking it will save you money over 5 years, this is definitely something to consider for your sort of 24-inch crested gecko enclosure. This will save you money than buying 5 lamps and the running cost over the years. It's definitely something to think about. They're available, and they're only going to get better and better as technology and advances for the LEDs.
Okay, thank you very much, Dale.
No problem.
Now I'm going to end up talking or end the podcast talking about two products that really don't get a lot of airtime and with Dr. Tim's. We make a variety of bacterial products, as everyone knows, but in order for those bacteria to actually survive in water, we have to make sure the water is free of chlorine and chloramines. And we have two products for that. I mean, you're familiar with the one and only live nitrifying bacteria, but more than you might think, people add this and it doesn't work. And the first question I'll say is, well, was your water chlorine free? Especially true in fresh water. And it seems basic to all of us. You have to remove the chlorine from the tap water or the chloramines, but a lot of people don't know that. And in order for the nitrifying bacteria to work, we first have to make sure that the water is chlorine chloramine free. And we do that with either product, AquaCleanse or First Defense. These are the only two chemical-based products that we make. And a lot of companies combine them, but we don't, because AquaCleanse is an oxidizing agent. And that oxidizing means it basically breaks things apart. And First Defense is full of vitamins, among other things. And so if you combine it with AquaCleanse, basically the AquaCleanse is going to destroy the vitamins. So what's the purpose of that? It doesn't make any sense. So AquaCleanse removes ammonia, chlorine, and chloramines. You should use it if you have an emergency situation, if you have a large amount of water, your 500-gallon tank, and you want to dechlorinate that, that's a great, AquaCleanse is a great product to work. If you're cycling your tank and going through the nitrogen cycle, don't use AquaCleanse to control ammonia. It makes no sense to add, and we have people do this. They add our nitrifying bacteria, they add our ammonia doing a fishless cycle to feed the bacteria, and then they add AquaCleanse or another brand of ammonia removing product.
So taking the food source away of what you're trying to achieve.
Yes. So,
okay.
Yeah. No, if you're going to do a fishless cycle, use First Defense. First Defense will remove chlorine and chloramines, but it doesn't have the ammonia removing chemical. It really makes no sense to remove ammonia when you're going to be adding ammonia drops for your fishless cycling. So AquaCleanse, emergency, something's happened and you've got high ammonia, or you've got to remove ammonia or chlorine or chloramines from a very large system. For your basic 10, 20, 30, up to a couple 100-gallon aquarium, start off using our First Defense. It contains vitamins and immunostimulant. It will promote wound and health repair, but it will also remove chlorine and chloramine. So you're getting 2 for 1. It's removing the toxic substances that are in tap water to keep bacteria from growing, to make the tap water safe for us. But it also is adding some vitamins and immune support for the fish and animals that are in there. It's also great for bathing corals or as a freshwater dip. If you're freshwater dipping your saltwater fish before you put them in the tank, you can add the First Defense to that dip, and that will help them cope with the stress, and it stimulates the feeding response with some of the mixtures of vitamins we have. This is used by several Florida fish farmers where they bring their fish in from the ponds in their buckets or vats. They're adding the First Defense. In fact, we shipped out a 5-gallon bucket yesterday. And again, it's about stimulating the immune system before the bacteria, the bad bacteria, have a chance to infect the fish. And then for your home aquarium, again, it's getting the water prepped for the nitrifying bacteria by removing the chlorine and chloramine from the water.
Mr. Tim, sorry, Dr. Tim, I have two questions.
Yes.
You mentioned freshwater dipping with First Defence. My saltwater fish do a freshwater dip.
Yep.
Would I need to buy freshwater First Defence or saltwater First Defence, or does it not matter in this instance?
If you're gonna, I would buy saltwater First Defence.
To do a freshwater dip on my saltwater fish. Yes, trying to get that right.
Yeah.
And the second question is, do you in the US suffer from chlorine and chloramine all over the US, or is there? I'm from a very small island of the United Kingdom, and we suffer from those things all over. There isn't. We have bad, and some are very bad, but chlorine is everywhere. Chloramine mainly in the summer. But do you have that all over the US? So that's in, or is it some states worse than other?
Well, by law, all municipal water has to be treated, and most places have stopped using chlorine because it produces trimethylhalogens, which are a potential carcinogen. So everyone has gone to chloramines. Now, if you're in a small area where they're using well water, they may get a variance for that. But generally, you can assume that everyone's got chloramines or chlorine in the water.
Okay.
Now, what you mentioned by state, it's more by season. The goal of a water district is to make that water safe for you to drink. They don't care about your fish. They don't care about your pond. They have to make that water safe. And what happens is, particularly when it's really hot, that can stimulate algae growth in these reservoirs, and they want to knock that down, so they might add more of this, or after there's a lot of rain and runoff.
Okay.
The runoff can stimulate algae and bacterial growth, and so they're always testing the water, and they're not going to announce, they're not going to broadcast that they're adding more, they're just going to add more. And that happens especially out here in Southern California. It's after any rain, which doesn't happen often, but they'll just really dose a lot more of the chloramine in the water. And so you have to be careful of that.
Okay.
And so you bring up, how to treat things. What we have found, and we have a lot of stores use this as a bagging solution, the First Defense, because it helps with difficult fish like Australian rainbows, live bears, powder blue tangs by stimulating the immune system that's in there. And then finally, if you're, what product, we make a variety of products besides AquaCleanse or First Defense. You can go to our website and we have a quick reference guide. And so the situation is here on the left side, and then the product is across the top. And our first recommendation is to use the product in the dark blue. And then you can follow that up by using the product that's in the white blue. So there's a variety. You can see the AquaCleanse and First Defense, detoxify tap water, remove chlorine, remove chloramines. So you can always consult this chart to figure out what products are best for your particular situation. And then to kind of go full circle, Thomas was talking about test kits in the very beginning. Well, where should we be? What are good ranges? And this is another sheet, a product overview that we put out of what our products do, how to use them, how our products are different. But then down below, it has water quality guidelines. What are the safe levels for ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, phosphate, your pH? Where should they be? And you can consult this guide to give you an idea, because don't focus, I have to have this exact number. Fish like stability, and they like it to be within a safe range. And that's what this chart can help you with, so that you can spend more time enjoying your fish and your tank and your corals, rather than fretting about what's my number, what's my number. So, and because we're not doing aquariums, sorry, Thomas, to become chemist or even biologist. We're setting up these tanks to have a slice of nature and some living creatures, and they're just calm. Aquariums are just so calm, so we don't want to fret over it and make it work. Some people turn it into work. It doesn't have to be that way. But test kits are needed, or you're kind of driving in the dark. If you're having problems growing your plants, consider better lighting. It's the key to everything. When you're coming to plant growth and coral growth, you need better lighting. And Dale was talking about the Pro 10s. Well, there's a whole set of Pro 10s that are specifically made for reef tanks and freshwater tanks that have the right LEDs. There's a wide variety, and we'll cover those in another podcast. So it's all about health and providing easy to use products and not getting bogged down in the minutiae. So I want to thank my guest, Thomas Berchery from ASF, Dale Lewis from Reptile Systems, for joining me in another session of the Dr. Tim podcast. Any quick closing comments, gentlemen?
No, I think stay calm is exactly what you said. Do your water tests, but when you look at determine the numbers, stay calm and use the information that's available you on the website and make decisions. Don't panic and start doing 50, 60, 80% water changes, all these kind of things. We've all made mistakes and we still do. So yeah. And yeah, consult a shop, go to a store, go and speak to someone and take a piece of paper and say, this is what I tested. These are my parameters. What do I need to do? Then that be one of the first things I can say is speak to someone in the know. Don't speak to Dave, you know, in the bar and go, oh no, Dave said it should be fine. Go and speak to a store. Go and speak to a store, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Take your test, take a water sample, have them run a test, and do their test. Are they close to your? They're not going to be spot on,
No.
but are they close?
No.
And because test kits, as Thomas said, test kits do go bad. The ammonia test kits probably go bad the quickest. But if you know if you're storing them wrong, if you contaminated them because you weren't careful, so that's why you keep the log. If something's out of whack, test again. And we just recently had a woman, and the testing made no sense, and she had 2 test kits, and it just made no sense. She went to the store. It turned out both test kits were bad, which that is not common.
No, they do have a use by date on them. You know, once open, they have a time to use. Every manufacturer's got a different date. So yeah, it's something to know. Oh, I've had the same test kit for 5 years. No. No.
Stored right there in the heat. Yes. So
yeah.
All right. So once again, everyone, thanks for listening. Good fish keeping. This has been Dr. Tim and another Dr. Tim's Aquatics podcast.